I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax that made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all.
Donald Trump just fawned over Putin, but gave few details about their high-stakes summit. I believe we had a very productive meeting, he said. There were many, many points that we agreed on. There's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO. Of course, I'll call up President Zelensky and I'll tell him about today's meeting. We really made some great progress. He said, I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. Trump thanked Putin in the most sycophantic way. Let's remember, Vladimir Putin is a wanted criminal by the International Criminal Court and others who want him for war crimes. Putin invited Trump to Moscow in English, surprisingly, despite having a translator with him. The rest of the time, he's like, next time in Moscow.
Thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Dozens of reporters shouted questions, but of course they didn't take any questions, and Donald Trump certainly had no plans for that either.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Trump also repeated his familiar lie that the US had given $350 billion to Ukraine for its defense, while Europe had given just $100 billion. Of course, that's completely untrue. In his interview with Sean Hannity, recorded in the room where he just failed to convince Putin to stop attacking Ukraine, Trump boasted that he had a very special talent for ending wars. Wars are very bad. I seem to have an ability to end them, Trump said, despite not ending the war in Ukraine. Trump was responding to a comment from Hannity, who praised Trump for playing a role in tampering down a series of largely dormant global conflicts in the past 6 months. Neither of them mentioned that Trump had promised on the campaign trail that he would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours if elected, even before he assumed office. Trump had planned to meet Putin privately, just the two of them, but that was cancelled shortly before it became a 3-on-3. Trump joined by his Secretary of State Marco Rubio and some property guy who supposedly is his peace envoy, who clearly has had no luck in previous negotiations, Steve Witkoff. Trump claims that he did have a chance to speak privately with Putin, though, after their brief 12-minute news conference. Putin spoke very sincerely, Trump said, about his desire to end the war in Ukraine. Trump failed to mention, however, that it was Putin who started the war in 2014 by seizing Ukrainian territory, and then it intensified in 2022 when Putin ordered the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Hannity asked if Trump could rate the meeting with Putin on a scale of 1 to 10. Trump, of course, said it was a 10 because it showed that the leaders of the two nuclear-armed nations could cooperate. It's good when two big powers get along, Trump said. What Trump also failed to realize is that he'd been completely played by Vladimir Putin, not just by having him invited to American soil, somewhere that Putin previously has not been welcome because of his war crimes and other things, but because Donald Trump fell into a trap set by Putin, bringing along business leaders, people who wanted to invest in the US economy, supposedly Russians, and their money that Trump could never turn down.
Some of our really great leaders, they've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think, everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress.
Remember, when he was on his way to the summit, Trump said, "I won't be happy if I walk away without some form of a ceasefire." He, in fact, said that he wanted the ceasefire to take place on the same day as the summit. But of course, that never came to pass. On Air Force One on his way to the summit, Trump said, "So when you talk about deals, it's all I do my whole life. I do deals. You never know. You never like to have too many expectations. But we're going to go and find out, and I'd like to see a ceasefire, and I wouldn't be thrilled if I didn't get it, but everyone says you're not going to get the ceasefire. It'll take place on the second meeting. But I'm not going to be happy with that. I won't be happy if I walk away without some form of a ceasefire." He walked away without a ceasefire. The fact that Donald Trump had Sean Hannity with him suggests that this entire thing was a setup for Fox News. This was designed to invite Vladimir Putin and his business leaders to American soil to soften any previous coldness in the US-Russian relationship and thaw out any frozen differences. Trump, as you know, respects Putin more than he respects European allies. He puts him on a pedestal, and he really has no interest in ending the war in Ukraine. He doesn't respect Volodymyr Zelensky, doesn't see him as the great dictator that he likes to associate with, and doesn't really believe in democracy either. So anybody who's democratically elected, as far as Trump is concerned, is of no use to him. And Trump knows that Putin is a killer. He's made references in recent days to the fact that if one of Putin's aides or henchmen is not doing as he's told, then he'll be offed. And Trump kind of made light of that, yet he still invites him to the United States, a known killer, somebody who gets away with it time after time, whether he's killing his opposition leader in politics or whether he's killing his military leaders off the battlefield. Vladimir Putin is a cold-blooded killer, wanted by the International Criminal Court, and Trump was fawning over him like it was his boyfriend.
But we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax. But what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here.
This does not bode well for world peace. It certainly doesn't bode well for peace in Ukraine. It just goes further to prove that Donald Trump is a pushover. He is not a great deal maker. He is somebody who just wants to feel like he's rubbing shoulders with the most famous characters of history, and he thinks that Putin, like Al Capone, is one of the greats. But let's not ignore that this was extremely embarrassing for Donald Trump, and just further goes to prove that he doesn't have any tricks up his sleeve, any deals to make. He just wants to be in the orbit of dictators and authoritarians, a club that he is so desperate to be a member of. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on the Weekend Show with Midas Touch.